Based on closing numbers, every single game goes under the total on Wednesday night, guys. We'll hope to have a lot more exciting hockey for you here on a Thursday, live on PuckTime on WagerTalk TV. Of course, I'm Andrew. Got Carmine and Bryan with me to break down 3 games, sides, totals, props, and some great promos as well here on PuckTime. Carm, good morning to you, man. You got a big play locked and loaded for this Thursday slate. It was a good Wednesday slate, but as far as goals are concerned, we didn't really see many of them.
No, we really didn't. When you said like every game went under the total, I had to have a quick look because I know the last 2 games on the card went under the total. The Leafs game pushed, although some late money came in on the Leafs, so that one closed at 6.5. And the Devils won. The Devils, Andrew, again. The Devils continue to be
All but one.
the Devils continue to be the team that can't have the lead after 20 minutes. Only 4 times all season long at home with the lead, but they're one of the best second period teams in the NHL, and I feel like there's something there. If you're in-game betting, we should be betting on the Devils at the end of one period to come back and win the game if they're only down 1-0, because you're getting a great price on them, and they scored 5 straight and beat the Bruins 5-1 in that one. Not so great a card yesterday. Tonight's I think is a great card. You have a 5% play up as well too. We're going to do 4 games for you guys today, guys. A little different. So we're going to do Montreal and Detroit. We got to have Montreal and Detroit. Johnny Detroit's Red Wings. Andrew McInnes's Montreal Canadiens. The Buffalo Sabres. How often do we talk about the Buffalo Sabres? Not often at all against Calgary Flames. Andrew and I will break that one down. Brian Leonard will do a solo on the Vegas Golden Knights. You can't have Brian Leonard on a show without the Vegas Golden Knights being discussed, and he'll have his thoughts on that one. Andrew's prop playlist, and then we're going to finish it off with the Washington Capitals and the Seattle Kraken. Someone said in yesterday's chat, where is the love for the Washington Capitals? They're on tonight's card, and we're going to discuss them. And with that said, Brian, welcome to the show. I'm going to go straight to you on the first one. Detroit, -130, Montreal +110. Total sitting here, 6, shaded a little bit to the under. And we know the previous meetings between these two, they played back-to-back in games in which you would have thought at the time, this is a great chance for the Detroit Red Wings to get something going, but the Montreal Canadiens had other plans for that one and swept the Wings at Little Caesars and back at the Bell Center. How are you breaking this one down?
I got to tell you, I've been a big fan of this Montreal team. Made a lot of money on them so far this year. So congrats to the Canadiens, Montreal up there. 2 teams playing the best hockey of the season collide on Thursday. The Canadiens are on a 7-2 run. Impressive wins over Colorado, Washington, who you just mentioned, Dallas, and Tampa Bay. They just won 2 or 3 at home and play this as a single road game before 3 more contests on the road. Detroit's on an 8-4 run of their own, but they have lost 3 straight heading into this matchup. This is the first game after a 1-3 road trip for Detroit. I think they're going to have, coming back home, they need to get back on the winning track, and I think they do so here. This is also a double revenge game, as you mentioned. They lost a home-and-home series to Montreal in mid-December, and they weren't even that close. I believe one of them was a 5-1 defeat. These clubs match up very well comparatively when looking at season-to-date data. But the importance of this contest is a must-have for the host, if you ask me. After this game, they face Tampa Bay, Los Angeles, and Edmonton to end the month. This is the game that Detroit has to have. Not only are they in for double revenge, but they also, from a scheduling standpoint, I'd like to look and see if the games coming up, as I mentioned, Tampa Bay, Los Angeles, and Edmonton, if they lose this game, they've already on a 3-game losing streak. So this could be a tough situation for Detroit. Must-win game at home against a Montreal team that unfortunately I made a lot of money on, but I can't go with them today. I like Detroit in this one.
Brian, before I send it to Andrew, I'm going to make my thoughts quick because I like Detroit in this one as well, too. And, this is not taking a shot at Andrew and Don Buster, who are diehard Montreal fans, because it's hard to go against a team that is 7-1-1 their last 9 games, playing absolutely well. And the one game that they did lose in regulation of those 9 games was the game that they got out to a 3-0 lead at the end of one period against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then it sort of snowballed after that. The Leafs just started scoring goals, and it snowballed, and it finishes 7-3. But it brings me a little bit of pleasure that the Leafs yesterday spit the bit, as they would call it in horse racing, at the top of the stretch against Columbus, losing to Columbus. I'm loving the race in the East, Andrew. Columbus gets a win. You look at the Eastern Conference. Columbus is in 7th spot with 53 points, tied with Tampa, who's in 6th. And then there's a slew of teams separated by about 4 to 5 points, at least 7 teams separated. The only ones, you look at it is the Buffalo Sabres at 41, the free space on the bingo card. They're not getting into the playoffs or the playoff race. But with that said, Andrew, how are you loving this race in the East? And are you going to agree with Bryan, or are you dropping the gloves on this one?
I think right now with the Montreal Canadiens, whether it's good or bad thing, for me, I'm disappointed because, like Bryan said, he's made money on them. I've been making money on some unders, but that's about it. It's kind of like my only piece I have as a sports bettor is that this is my team. I don't really bet on them or against them. I bet a lot of totals, and I have done very well over the years with totals. But man, I sure as hell wish I was betting this plus money we're getting here. And the funny thing is, a lot of people are sitting here looking at this game and saying, okay, so you're going to give me a team that's like 13-2-1 their last 16 at plus money, right? But to Bryan's point, we are getting a pretty good spot here for Detroit, a desperate Detroit team. The only thing that I'll say about this Detroit team is, and I've brought up Dave Koken a bunch of times when I've talked about this, the coaching firing bump, because every time a coach gets fired, I regret not playing on that team enough. And Dave used to just collect units and units and units doing this for so long on each said team. And Detroit did that. But then once they lost their game after they had that coach's bump, things immediately started to go back to normal, to old habits. And it's kind of concerning. And Coach Todd McLellan kind of called out his team. He said that, I don't know what we're doing right now defensively. It's different than what I was seeing even a few games ago. But the games that we saw in both Detroit and in Montreal in that December back-to-back, both of them had fireworks. So Montembeault is coming off a really, really good start a couple nights ago against Tampa Bay. But it wouldn't shock me, guys. My gut is telling me the over 5.5 is the play here. We have seen some games where Montreal has had low scoring, and there's a reason why they've been going to overtime a ton. And if you look at it last year, the Montreal Canadiens were one of the number one teams as far as one-goal games. And guess what? They lost a hell of a lot of those games. And now they're involved in a lot of one-goal games again, and they're winning some of these games. But a lot of these are low scoring. But I think this game against Detroit, Atlantic Division foe, as much as the point will mean a lot to either of them, so I wouldn't be shocked to see OT. I think we see goals. So I'm staying off the side here. I'm going to go over 5.5 in this one. I think Detroit potentially sacrifices some defense for offense. The power plays look good for the Habs with Laine out there, Caulfield out there, and finally they have a second line with Kirby Dach and Newhook playing well. So, don't discount this Red Wings team and their offense. They're playing well, but I think their defense, I still don't really trust them, and the goaltending can be a bit iffy. So I'll go over here. But to Bryan's point, guys, I was just checking here because I've been checking every day here, Carm. 9-1, the current updated odds for the Red Wings to make the postseason, 9-1. Montreal Canadiens plus 340. And these games where they're head-to-head mean so much more. If Detroit gets 2 points up on Montreal tonight, they go back down to 750, 7-1. Things can change so much faster because it's such a tight race right now. Montreal was in a playoff spot Tuesday night. They don't play a game Wednesday. They're out of a playoff spot. This is how intense things are in the East right now. But, Carm, I see this one being more of a higher scoring game with that low total of 5.5. So lean towards the over in this one.
Listen, I don't blame you, and the odds are, Andrew. The odds are wild. Like if you look at places like DK, and you form an opinion on a team, and you don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Kind of like I mentioned, like the Boston Bruins, even money to miss the playoffs. Now, it doesn't sound like why do I want to tie in my money on an even money bet? It is not part of your regular bankroll. It should be part of your futures bankroll. I have two different bankrolls. The one I bet with every single day, and my futures. I use the futures more so in European football because there are bigger odds on things that I take teams to win championships, teams to win competitions, kind of like Chelsea 20-1 or Real Madrid at 33-1 after they lost game one in the knockout stages of the Champions League. You find odds because you form an opinion and you go with it. And if you win, it's a great windfall. If you lose, but I separate the two. So it removes the thing of tying up money on a play that is even money and saying, why do I want to tie it up for the next 3 months to find out whether this team makes the playoffs or not? Andrew, Brian's going to do the Vegas Golden Knights game tonight against St. Louis. But let's discuss quickly the Buffalo Sabres and Calgary Flames here. I'm going to go out on a limb. Yes, this is the homer bet, but I have to believe the Sabres plus 115, just because, again, I'm not sold on Calgary. Calgary's another team. These are two teams I believe are not going to make the playoffs, more so the Buffalo Sabres. And I was pretty strong about the fact that I didn't like Calgary to make the playoffs this season. I think the Western Conference is ultra tough. But it's also one that is a goalie dependent play because I will only play the Sabres if I want to play them at all with Luukkonen in goal. They brought up Devon Levy from the minors. They put him in. They put him in goal against the Kraken, and he gets lit up for 5 or 6 goals. He is not an NHL type goalie right now. He needs to stay in the AHL. If it's Luukkonen in goal and the Sabres off a win against Vancouver, I'm going to take the Sabres plus 115 to beat up on another non-playoff team, just because I think the Sabres have more scoring than the Calgary Flames do. And that's even including the fact that it'll likely be Dustin Wolf in goal for Calgary, who's been very solid at home this season. So give me the Sabres plus 115. What are your thoughts?
Carm, I don't have a strong opinion on this game, but I like the under in this one here. Back-to-back totals for me on the show. But, when I look at analytics, I don't look at full season. I think it's important with analytics to look at the past week, 2 weeks, or even just this month. And so that's kind of what I've been doing a lot on PuckTime. As far as expected goals against, might be a kind of a bright sign for the Buffalo Sabres to hear this, but they rank number 6 in expected goals against in a good way in the month of January. Well, the Calgary Flames, they're number 3. So both teams playing pretty well defensively. Calgary, 3 straight unders for them. We have seen bright signs of Buffalo and their defending. As you mentioned, Carm, a little bit worrisome for goaltending there. For the Flames as well, it's been on and off. But, man, their goaltending when they're on, they've been really good. And that's probably the reason why they are where they are in the standings. So I just think that both these teams have realized that if they start playing track meets, it doesn't benefit their offense. It doesn't benefit the team as a whole. And kind of course, where they both are, especially this Buffalo team in the standings, they can't keep playing pond hockey. They can't keep playing first to 4 goals, 5 goals wins the game. They have to protect their own end much better. So we're seeing a lot more neutral zone time. And as long as they can keep these teams out of the penalty box or out of the power play, I'm confident this under 5.5 is the way to go. And Carmen, you and I have talked about this, and I've been talking about this on different shows as well. I mean, it feels like just yesterday where it was rare to see a 6 and every single total was 6.5, guys. And then we were seeing 7s. I don't know how many 7s we've seen this year, but I think the reason why we're seeing so many 5.5s is the nature of how competitive the NHL has been right now. And so these teams, when they get a lead, they protect it. They sit back a lot more. There's a lot more patience, Something I wish my Habs did on Saturday night, Carm, with a 3-goal lead is just sit back and protect it. But I think under 5.5 is the play, Sabres and Flames. And you can tell, Carm, I'm still bitter about a week ago.
There's only been, I believe, and someone in the chat can confirm it, or Ralph Michaels, we can check with him and then mention it tomorrow. I think I've only seen 1-7 on the board this season, and it involved Tampa Bay. I think it was Tampa Bay and Anaheim. I think it was in Tampa Bay. So I could be wrong, but I believe that's the only 7 I've seen thus far in the NHL. I think we're going to see a lot more 5.5s because we're going to see a lot more games that sort of play out like the two last night in the one in Colorado. And I'm going to mention obviously Winnipeg wins that game. Andrew, look at these stats on. I just want to mention before we go to Brian. I know I'm going off on a tangent here. Connor Hellebuyck, these are his stats compared to the league average. The league average, goals against average, 2.86. Connor Hellebuyck, 2.02. Save percentage, 8.99. His, 928. Slot save percentage, 8.34. His, 8.71. Inner slot save percentage, 789. His, 850. And then goals saved above expected. The league average for goalies is 0.13. His is 0.74. And that's 62 goalies with a minimum of 10 starts in the NHL. He is having, once again, a phenomenal season. And as he goes, I think the Winnipeg Jets go. So I wanted to mention that when we're talking about unders, and I mentioned on yesterday's show, a lot of 5.5s are going to start to appear, Andrew. You want to take those 5.5s, I think, and under when you've got the good goalies in goal. I don't see high-scoring games with Hellebuyck in net. But speaking of predictions, this man a couple of weeks ago told you the Vegas Golden Knights schedule is about to get tougher, and he didn't think they were as good as they were playing. And lo and behold, the Vegas Golden Knights have lost 6 of 7 games. It's Nostradamus himself, Brian Leonard, to break down the Vegas Golden Knights St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this game because it's really interesting to me. I'm watching the game. This is the second of a back-to-back for the two. I'm watching the game the other day, and I said to myself, I want to bet on the team that loses this game. I think it's very important for neither one of these teams to sweep. I thought it was going to be a split. And you would think this is a must-win game for the Golden Knights. I mean, as you mentioned, they've lost 6 of 7, including playing in revenge for a 5-4 shootout loss to these Blues on Monday. You know, after this contest, they faced the likes of Dallas twice and Florida. The goaltending, which has been so good all season, has permitted 18 total goals in the last 4 games. But much of that blame should go to the defense as a whole. They're not protecting the men in net. A lot of people here in Vegas are upset about the goaltending. I don't think it's the goaltending. They're not getting any help there. Word came out. This is interesting. I read this on Twitter, and it's the first I've heard of it. But word came out that the Swedish team, you know, having that national thing, the 4 national teams, they're concerned about the health of William Karlsson. William Karlsson missed the beginning of the season, I believe the first 2 weeks with an injury, but he's played every day since. That's something, living here in Vegas, I've never heard mentioned. Nobody's talking about an injury to William Karlsson. So maybe that's something that we need to keep an eye on for the next couple of weeks here and see what happens. Without him, I mean, he's not having a good season, I'll tell you that. He's not having one of his better seasons, but he is an excellent player, and he's a key to this team, the number 2 center. So if he's not fully healthy, it could get even worse for Vegas, so keep an eye on that. But you know, St. Louis has been much better since they've had their coaching change. They've gone 4-1 at home this month. I really wanted to play the Golden Knights here, but this price is about 20 cents higher than what I wanted to play. I thought the way Vegas was playing right now, that St. Louis would be maybe a 125, or Vegas would be maybe a 125 favorite here, and I could play Vegas on the road. We're looking at 145. There's no way in hell I could play Vegas in this price range, even though they are playing with revenge and the situation calls for it here. I just can't play on a team that's playing as poorly as Vegas is right now. And to be totally honest with you, I don't think they're playing with any confidence at all. This is not the way Vegas plays. They're not used to playing this way. And in fact, if you go back, I believe it's the last 4 years, Vegas has gone into January with the best record in the NHL or best record in the Pacific and they've been very good. And then in the month of January, they lose every single year. Something's going on here where they're just overlooking the schedule or what's going on, but the same thing happens year in and year out, something they need to work on. So this, from a spot standpoint, this has got to be Vegas. I can't play them at this number. It's unfortunate because I was expecting to use them as a big 5%, but the line's too high. You've got to be able to play with what the line you have. And I think Vegas is the better team, and they should get this victory. I just can't trust them, especially defensively right now. The offense really has not played well. You look at them on the power plays; they're getting worse every time out. It's a situation for Vegas that I could see them dropping to third place in this division in no time at all. It's both LA and Edmonton are the better teams right now.
Right, I'm going to have a follow-up question for you. This isn't the Teddy covers tough follow-up question, so don't get fearful on this one. But this is the first of a back-to-back for the Vegas Golden Knights. The goalies aren't confirmed as of yet. They're in Dallas tomorrow night as well too. Would you start Samsonov tonight and Aiden Hill tomorrow? Because that's what it's showing on a couple of the sites. For their goalies for the week, that that'll likely be Samsonov tonight and Aiden Hill. Would you start Aiden Hill in this spot and Samsonov tomorrow? Thinking that start your best goalie in a spot that you think you should get a win.
Well, Samsonov played the last game, right? And they've been switching off pretty much all year long. Samsonov did not have a good outing against them. So why would you bring him back against him again? Because he did not play well in that game, especially early on. I think they've got to go into this thinking they need to split, and it's much easier to beat St. Louis than it is to beat Dallas, even as well as St. Louis is playing right now. Aiden Hill would be the guy that I would throw out there right now, and if Aiden Hill has a great game, maybe you come back with him again tomorrow. Maybe you go back to the 1-1 because they really haven't used these guys on a consistent basis overall this season. They said coming into the year, if they could get to this point where they could share the duties, they'd really love that. So that when they got to the playoffs, they can go with the guy who's fresher. Hopefully Aiden Hill, if he's the number one guy there. So, yes, a situation for myself that I would hope that Aiden Hill is going to be going today, because you can't expect to win with your backup goaltender the way they've been playing right now. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's true. I haven't heard from either one of them who's going. I just assumed it would be Aiden Hill.
You know, it's and I'm looking at places like RotoWire where you can see like the expected goalies for the next 7 days, but it doesn't always work out that way. But quite a tough schedule for the Vegas Golden Knights. The Blues tonight, obviously, then they're in Dallas tomorrow. Sunday, they're home against the Florida Panthers. And then on Tuesday, they're home against the Dallas Stars. So that is a tough little schedule going. But I agree with your start Aiden Hill tonight if he has a solid game for them to get the win. And it's not a rocking chair winner, but an easy win. You start him again tomorrow. He's your number one guy. There's times in March and April where you can start resting up your goalies for the playoffs, but I think you need to accumulate the points. Speaking of accumulating the points, Andrew, you have been accumulating 5% wins in the NHL this season. Number one at WagerTalk. You have one going tonight, which is always a great time to take advantage of those promos, guys, at WagerTalk. And they have the 7 days for $77. Instead of paying $35 for Andrew's play tonight, pick up 7 days. Get all of his plays, including his NFL prop play on the weekend, for $77. That's a great deal. So, Andrew, give us some winners on the prop playlist so people can follow along for the next 7 days with you.
I appreciate that, Carmine, and same goes for you. Like, you absolutely cashed a 5% soccer winner for Dan and myself and all the WagerTalk customers. Now 5% hockey play for you tonight. So, guys, that deal is the best deal. You're going to get 7 days, $11 a day, $77 for the week. All of my plays. Get my NHL 5%, NFL 5%. Keep things going. A 2-0 night last night in the NHL. 32-unit run in the NHL. Let's get to some props here. Lane Hudson to record an assist for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, I don't know why I haven't been mentioning this earlier, but he has been on an absolute tear. 9 straight games with an assist for Lane Hutson. He leads all rookies in scoring points overall. He has absolutely been a machine. His ice time is one of the highest on the Canadiens, and he's a rookie on this team. He's out there on the first power play unit. He's out there when the team needs a goal, and he's kind of that offensive defenseman that's gotten comfortable pretty much the second he got into the league. He's also from the Michigan area, so this definitely plays a factor in the fact that he has at least 1 assist in 4 straight games against the Detroit Red Wings. Add on to the fact today on PuckTime, I gave out the over in this game. I do expect some goals in this game. I think Lane Hutson, even at minus 110, is a good price to record an assist. And this is probably one of the first days that it wasn't plus money, but I think it's definitely appropriate. This is now a minus 110 number. All right, another matchup-based player prop. This is going to be Drake Batherson from the Ottawa Senators against the Boston Bruins. And we're going to take him to record an assist as well. You know, sometimes I'll look towards guys and their recent history over the last few games, but sometimes I'll look towards how somebody is doing against a specific team. Well, Batherson has a point in 5 straight games against Boston, guys, but that price is minus 135. I'm always telling you about protecting your bankroll. Well, he also has an assist in 5 straight games against the Boston Bruins, and that number is plus 130. So that's the way to go here with Drake Batherson. A really good game here in the division. Ottawa versus Boston. All the points matter for both these teams, and Batherson is definitely a big part of the Ottawa Senators. So not just a goal scorer, a passer as well, and getting plus 130 on this guy to record an assist, I think, is a really good prop. So let's catch these 2 player props, guys. We were 1-1 last night with the player props. Hopefully go 2-0 tonight. Hopefully cash the big 5% ticket over at WagerTalk.com. Brian, we'll keep the show going. We'll get to you for our 3rd game. And, you know, I think this one's pretty interesting because a lot of us on the show have written off the Capitals and said, okay, they're overachieving. And then we've said, you know what? Okay, this team's pretty damn good. All right, we have to accept that this team is pretty good. But this team, and you know about Logan Thompson, watching him in Vegas, I got into it with somebody on social media, as I do sometimes, and I know we try and stay away from that. I was telling somebody that, hey, this team looks a bit better than they are a lot of the time because of their goaltending. And a lot of times when you go to Money Puck or you go to Natural Stat Trick or you look at the expected goals in some recent Cap games, they weren't expected to win some of these games that they're involved in. But that takes a good team because guess what? Hockey is about goaltending, right? You have a good goalie. That's good management by the GM. How do they fare tonight in this matchup against Seattle, a team that I think has just been absolutely mid-level the entire season?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you were to compare Washington to the Philadelphia Flyers, Philadelphia's got great offensive numbers. They're just dominating on the ice, and their goaltending's terrible. So if you were just playing them off of their offense, you'd think they'd have a lot more wins than what they have. Washington is just the opposite. Washington's team, it's got great goaltending. They get the job done. They're playing very confident hockey. And unlike others who doubted them all season long, I've made good money on Washington, and I expect to do that once again tonight. The Capitals have not lost a game in regulation since December 29th. That's 11 straight games, and yet nobody's talking about them. I mean, we talked about this in the opener where somebody said that they weren't giving them any credit. People aren't. It's just a situation where Washington is one of those teams that have kind of flown under the radar this year. And they've made money for everybody who's backed them all season long. They beat the shorthanded Oilers on Tuesday in Edmonton without Edmonton's best player, obviously. But this is the second 5 straight on the road. It's another part of the season where Washington goes on the road, goes to the West Coast, plays 5 games. If they come out of this at 3-2 or better, you got to think they've done their job. Seattle's won 4 or 6 of late themselves, and they're in a second of 4 straight at home. They have a real chance of padding that record with games against Pittsburgh, Anaheim, and San Jose to end the month. But Washington is not Pittsburgh, Anaheim, or San Jose. On the season, Washington has a net 62 goal advantage between the two. They have a strong 16-6-1 record on the road. We're looking at teams like Carolina, who are great at home, terrible on the road. Just got this Washington team, 16-6-1 on the road. They're good no matter where they play. I think the line's cheap. I like Washington here.
What do you think, Carm?
Right, Brian, I'm going to agree with Brian, Andrew. I'm going to keep it short and simple. You know, I thought at some point early on in the season that there would be a little bit of regression for him, but I've jumped on board enjoying what Washington is doing, because you can't watch a Washington game and not say that it is good hockey. It is exciting hockey. This team comes at you in waves. They skate. I'm loving the Ovechkin story. Even as a Canadian, and the whole Wayne Gretzky thing, I love seeing records broken. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the NFL, and if Saquon Barkley had played in week 18, and you don't play him in week 18 anyways, could have broken the record. Ovechkin, what was he, 20 or 21 goals away from breaking Gretzky's record? Is a record that nobody thought would ever be broken. This is great, because you're living in an era where you can say, you saw one guy, at least I can, Brian can, Andrew, I don't think you can really, but Gretzky set the record, and then Ovechkin break the record. So this is great. If you listen to the press, he'll tell you that Austin Matthews is going to break the record as well too. I'm not sure what edibles that guy's on, but I'm not going to agree with him on that one. Give me Washington in this one. This is a big week for Washington and their fan base. The Capitals are out west. The Commanders are in Philadelphia, trying to avoid getting hit by snowballs and batteries, and making it to the Super Bowl. Give me Washington Capitals here in this one, Andrew. I'll lay the $1.40 on this one. I have no thoughts on the over, because I know that the Caps can score. I'm not sure what Seattle's going to bring to it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, it took me way too long to start betting on this team and to start getting involved with them, which I regret. But guys, I've been talking about it all season long. Every day on the show, I try and find different ways to get better prices. And I kind of like the fact that we can try and find a way to get a good price on this Capitals team. And the Kraken are coming into this game actually playing some decent hockey. And the funny thing is I don't think that's going to be sustainable against this Washington team. So we're getting a team feeling good about themselves, and tonight's going to be a wake-up call. My bet is the team total under 2.5 at plus 140. I'm seeing books showing minus 145 for this game, and I'm turning that into a plus 100, plus 105. Taking a look at some of these Capitals victories over the Ducks. They shut them out. Over the Senators, they shut them out. Over the Penguins, they allowed 1. Over the Oilers, they allowed 2. Guys, when this Capitals team looks at their best, they're playing defensive hockey. We are turning a minus 140 into a plus 100 on the Kraken team total under 2.5 goals. That's my way of going about this game, and I feel like it's a really good way to protect our bankrolls. And I'm really getting my words mixed up right now, so I'm going to go back over to you, Carm.
Yeah, it's me. I threw you off on the loop. I sent you a message in Slack before we get to the best bets. Guys, this is an absolutely either it's the dumbest idea or it is a genius idea. Dan Alexander, our fabulous producer and Eagles faithful, who's going to the game this weekend, flying from I don't know why you would fly from a sunny place like the West Coast to the East Coast, but you're an Eagles fan and they're in the conference finals. The Eagles are selling snow packaged in like these little containers, like almost like the Ben and Jerry's containers, and then packing them in dry ice and shipping them to people who will buy them. I think they're like $50 to get snow from their playoff win last week. Andrew, can you believe people are going to pay $50 for snow? And then they tell you when it arrives at your house, put it straight into the freezer so you can maintain the integrity of the snow. I'm going to do the same thing, guys. This year, I am going to be selling snow from the Zamboni that cleans the ice at Maple Leaf games when they win a playoff round. I will have a link in my bio, $49.99 plus shipping and handling. Buy snow from the Toronto Maple Leafs playoff win this season. With that said, Brian, I'm going to go to you for a best bet on today's show and tell us what you have up at WagerTalk.
I'm going to buy some snow from the New Orleans Pelicans game from this week. Did you see it? They're down there skating on the ice in New Orleans. Yeah, weird weather we're having right now. Yeah, I've got 2 plays going today. My best bet in hockey is the one we spoke about a little bit